In May, a company hatched living chicks inside a see-through machine. The reason why is a bird that stood 12 feet tall and laid an egg no animal alive is big enough to sit on. That bird is the South Island Giant Moa. It vanished from New Zealand around 600 years ago, and it was not a small loss. The largest females stood close to 12 feet with their necks raised and weighed on the order of 500 pounds. They had no wings. Not stubby, useless wings like an ostrich. No wings at all, not even the bones. The moa is the only bird we know of that erased its arms from its skeleton completely. So picture a quarter-ton animal, taller than the room you are sitting in, that walked New Zealand for millions of years with nothing where its wings should be. And it laid an egg to match. A giant moa egg held somewhere around 80 times the volume of a chicken egg. That number is the whole story, so hold on to it. Because here is the problem that number creates. If you want to bring an animal back, at some point you need to hatch it. And a bird hatches from an egg that a parent sits on and keeps warm. There is no living bird on Earth big enough to lay a moa egg, and none big enough to sit on one without crushing it. The ostrich, the largest bird alive, is not remotely close. So the moa runs into a wall that a mammoth never does. A mammoth, in theory, can grow inside an elephant. A moa has no surrogate. Nothing alive can carry it. That is the wall Colossal Biosciences says it just climbed. On the 19th of May this year, the company announced what it called an artificial egg, and to prove it worked, they hatched live chicks inside it. Ordinary chicks, from ordinary eggs, but grown start to finish outside the biological shell. The device is a lattice shell wrapped around a bioengineered membrane. And the clever part is that the membrane matches the way a real eggshell lets oxygen pass through, so the embryo can breathe without any extra oxygen pumped in. It is largely transparent, and that part is not just for show. Andrew Pask, the biologist who leads Colossal's avian and marsupial work, has framed the see-through design as a scientific tool. Because in de-extinction, you need to actually watch an embryo develop and confirm with your own eyes that the edited traits, the lost features you were trying to rebuild, are showing up as the animal grows. A normal shell hides all of that. This one lets you check, and Colossal says the design scales to any size, including, one day, the giant moa. As a piece of engineering, that is genuinely impressive, and it is worth saying so plainly before we start pulling at the threads. Growing a bird to hatching with no shell and no added oxygen is hard, and no one had shown it at this level before. They did it. And the transparency turns the egg into something you can run experiments on, not just an incubator. Before we go further, it helps to actually know the animal on the other end of this, because the moa was stranger than the headlines let on. For millions of years, it was the largest thing walking New Zealand, in a country that had almost no land mammals at all. The birds took the roles mammals took everywhere else. The moa was the deer, the moose, the grazing giant, cropping shrubs and trees across the South Island. And it had exactly one natural predator, a single bird called Haast's eagle, the largest eagle that ever lived, with talons the size of a tiger's claws, which hunted by dropping onto the backs of moa many times its weight. When people arrived and the moa went, that eagle went with it, because it had nothing left to eat. Pull one giant out of a food web and the other collapses behind it, and it happened fast. The first Polynesian settlers reached New Zealand around the year 1300, and within roughly a century and a half, every species of moa, 9 of them, was gone. A bird that had ruled for millions of years did not survive 200 years of people. That is how quick a giant can disappear when nothing has ever hunted it before. Then there is the twist that makes biologists smile. The moa's closest living relative is not the ostrich or the emu, the giant flightless birds you would expect. Genetic work has tied the moa most closely to the tinamou, a chicken-sized bird from South America that still flies. So the closest thing on Earth to a 500-pound wingless giant is a partridge-shaped bird you could hold in 2 hands. That is not a footnote. It is a warning about how far you actually are from a moa, even when you have a living relative in hand. Now here is where the story quietly gets more complicated than the headline. Hatching a chicken chick inside a machine does not mean a moa is coming. It means the least difficult part of the problem now has a solution. Think about what actually has to happen for a moa to hatch out of that egg. First, you need a moa, not a chicken. A living cell carrying an edited moa genome ready to grow. And that is the part nobody has solved, for the moa or for any bird. With mammals, you can take a skin cell, reprogram it, edit it, and clone an animal from it. That is roughly the path to the dire wolf and the mammoth. Birds do not work that way. You cannot clone a bird from a skin cell because a bird embryo starts developing the moment the egg is laid, inside a system that has no easy entry point. The only realistic route runs through something called primordial germ cells, the cells that become eggs and sperm. You would have to edit those cells toward moa, put them into a living host bird, and have that host grow up and produce moa eggs. For the dodo, Colossal has been working exactly this problem in pigeons, and even that, in a small modern bird, is at the frontier of what is possible. For the moa, there is no host. What living bird carries and passes on germ cells that could build a 500-pound ratite? An emu, maybe, is the least unreasonable candidate, and that is a very long way from proven. Remember the tinamou. The closest relative that actually exists is a bird you could hold in your hands, and you cannot grow a giant inside it. So the artificial egg answers the question of how a moa might hatch, while the far harder question, how you ever get a moa embryo to put inside it, is still wide open. Colossal has been clear that this is a 5 to 10-year project. The egg is real, the moa is not close. And that gap is exactly why the name matters, which brings us to the pushback. Look closely at the phrase artificial egg. What Colossal built is an incubation chamber, a very sophisticated one, but a vessel that an embryo develops inside, not an egg an animal produces. Several scientists who cover this field have made that point since the announcement, in outlets like MIT Technology Review, arguing that calling it an artificial egg oversells what it is and blurs the line between a real biological breakthrough and a very good piece of branding. This is the same company whose chief science officer, Beth Shapiro, has openly described their animals as engineered proxies rather than true resurrections. The science is often more honest than the words wrapped around it, and artificial egg is one of those words doing more marketing than the machine underneath it strictly earns. Then there is the part of this story that has nothing to do with membranes or germ cells, and it is the one Colossal can least afford to get wrong. The moa is not a generic extinct animal. It belongs to a place and a people. The South Island Giant Moa is woven through the history and identity of Ngāi Tahu, the main Maori iwi of New Zealand's South Island, and Colossal's Moa project was launched in partnership with the Ngāi Tahu Research Center, with roughly $15 million from the filmmaker Peter Jackson and his partner Fran Walsh behind it. On paper, that partnership was the project's foundation. In practice, it is cracked. In early June this year, a group of respected Maori academics went public against the project. Amanda Black, Tame Malcolm, and Philip Wilcox, among others, argued that the wider Maori community was never properly consulted, that a single research center speaking for everyone was not real consent, and that no machine can restore what they call the moa's Maori, its life force, its place in a living web of relationships. Another Maori scholar, Aroha Te Pareake Mead, put it even more bluntly, calling the effort a false promise rooted more in ego than in care. You do not have to settle that debate to see the point. The people whose ancestors knew the living moa are not united behind bringing it back, and that is not a footnote to the science. For a project like this, it may be the whole thing. Now, suppose you set all of that aside. Suppose the genome gets built, the host bird works, the machine hatches a living moa chick a decade from now. Here is the question almost no announcement asks. Then what? A moa chick would hatch with no parent of its kind into a country that has not held a moa in 600 years. Its predator, Haast's eagle, is gone. The forests it grazed have been logged, farmed, and replaced. The web it belonged to, the plants shaped by its browsing, the eagle shaped by hunting it, does not exist anymore. So what you would have is not a restored species. It is a single very large bird in an enclosure, learning nothing from anything, belonging to no ecosystem. The same lonely outcome that hangs over the mammoth. Hatching the animal was always the middle of the problem, not the end. The moa did not just leave a gap in a museum, it left a gap in a living system that closed behind it. So step back and look at what the artificial egg actually is. Once you take the word artificial egg off it, it is a real advance on one narrow, genuine obstacle. It is a demonstration, timed and filmed and named to look like the moa is nearly here. and it sits on top of a much larger structure that is mostly still missing. A Moa genome no one has assembled into a living cell. A host bird no one has. A timeline measured in a decade of maybes. A partnership with the people the Moa belongs to that is already coming apart. And a country with no place left to put the animal even if it worked. None of that makes the egg fake. It makes it the easy part, dressed up as the finish line. The honest version of this story is not that Colossal is lying to you, and it is not that a Moa is about to walk out of a transparent shell in Dunedin. It is that a hard problem got one real piece solved, and that piece got a name and a video designed to make the other unsolved pieces feel already handled. Watch the machine. It is genuinely clever. Just keep counting the things it does not do, because that count is where the real story of the Moa still lives. And while a company builds an egg for a bird that has been gone 600 years, the birds vanishing right now are not getting a transparent shell or a Peter Jackson check. I made a whole video about that gap. Watch, while we resurrect the dead, the living are vanishing faster next.